just spent $400,000 on a 40-foot boat, twin engines, teak deck, the works. You assume the hard part is over. Then you call the marina closest to your house to rent a slip and you hear 4 words nobody warned you about. The waitlist is closed. Not slow, not long, closed. Meaning the marina isn't even accepting new names anymore. You think you just bought a boat. What you actually bought was an entry ticket into a business built entirely around the fact that you now have almost nowhere else to go. Here's the turn. A marina was never in the business of renting you water. It's in the business of making sure that once you're in, you can't leave. Because a marina isn't one business, it's at least 5 all tied to the same dock. There's the municipal marina, owned by a city or port authority, often required by its own charter to keep prices low for local residents, even while a private operator down the coast charges triple for an identical slip. There's the private full-service marina, the most common model, which owns the water frontage outright and stacks revenue from every service a boat could possibly need. There's the yacht club marina, technically owned by its own members, where you're not paying rent so much as buying equity in a private social institution that happens to have docks attached. There's the resort marina, bolted onto a hotel or luxury development, where the slips are almost a rounding error next to what the property makes on rooms and restaurants. And there's the dry stack facility, which never puts your boat in the water at all. It stores it in a massive steel rack and launches it with a forklift only when you call ahead, trading water frontage for warehouse space and cutting overhead dramatically. 5 business models, 1 activity, keeping your boat somewhere that isn't your driveway. So what are you actually renting when you tie up at a slip? Not a rectangle of water. You're paying for a floating dock system engineered to handle tidal swings of 6 feet or more without your cleats tearing out of the wood. You're paying for the travel lift, a machine that can cost close to $500,000, built to hoist an 80,000-pound yacht out of the water and set it down without a scratch. You're paying for the fuel dock, the pump-out station required by federal environmental law, gated security, and shore power wired to handle a boat pulling more electricity than most houses. And buried underneath every one of those slips is a number almost no renter ever thinks to ask about: how many linear feet of water frontage that marina is legally permitted to operate. That number was decided years, sometimes decades before you ever showed up, and it is the real reason you're on a wait list right now. We'll come back to that. Let's talk about what it costs to build one of these from nothing. A single floating dock slip, engineered and installed, can run $30,000 to $40,000 before a boat ever touches it. A mid-size marina with 200 slips can represent $8 to $15 million in dock infrastructure alone. Then there's dredging, scooping accumulated silt off the harbor floor so boats don't run aground at low tide, which can cost over $1 million for a single project and has to be repeated every few years because the silt always comes back. Add the travel lift, the fuel systems, and environmental permitting that can take 3 to 5 years to clear before construction even starts, and a fully built private marina can represent $20 to $50 million in sunk cost before the first check from a boat owner ever clears. Once it's open, an average slip for a mid-sized boat rents for $600 to $1,500 a month, which sounds reasonable until you realize that's the price of roughly 30 large pizzas every single month just to keep the boat tied to a dock. So follow this upstream, back to that number we set aside earlier. In the United States, you cannot simply buy a piece of coastline and start building docks. The waterway itself usually belongs to the state, or in some cases the federal government, under what's called the public trust doctrine. A marina operator doesn't own the water. It leases the right to use it through a state waterway lease or a riparian rights permit, typically reviewed by the Army Corps of Engineers. And here's the part that changes everything. In most established harbors, that permitting process effectively closed decades ago. Environmental review, neighborhood opposition, and a fixed coastline mean cities aren't approving new marinas anywhere close to the rate boat ownership is growing. The operator upstream isn't just a business owner. It's the holder of a government-issued monopoly on a stretch of water that legally cannot be expanded and functionally cannot be replicated down the coast. That's the number that put you on a 3-year wait list. It was never about how many boats existed. It was about how few permits ever got approved. Here's the reveal. That $600 to $1,500 a month you're watching leave your account is often priced close to break even. It's not the profit center, it's the hook. The moment your 40-foot boat is tied to that dock, you've entered what the industry doesn't have an official name for, but every operator understands instinctively. Call it the anchor effect. The exact moment a customer becomes functionally unable to leave and the business quietly stops competing on price. Moving a boat isn't like canceling a gym membership. It requires a truck rated to haul 40,000 pounds, a crane to lift it out of the water, sometimes a police escort, and another marina 3 years down its own wait list willing to take you. So when the fuel dock charges $1 more per gallon than the gas station 2 miles away, you pay it. When winterization costs $800, about 35 large pizzas gone in one invoice, you pay it. When haul-out and off-season storage run another few thousand and repairs get billed at double what an equivalent car mechanic charges, you pay all of it every year because the real cost of saying no was never on the invoice. It was the cost of relocating a 40,000-pound object with nowhere else legally allowed to put it. But owning that dock isn't a risk-free monopoly as it looks from the outside. A single major storm can destroy tens of millions of dollars in floating infrastructure in one night, and insurance premiums in hurricane-prone regions have climbed so fast that some operators now self-insure large portions of their own docks, betting company cash against the weather. A fuel spill, even a small one, can trigger federal environmental liability that dwarfs an entire season of dockage revenue. Dredging isn't a one-time cost either. Silt refills the channel every 3 to 7 years, so that $1 million expense is really a recurring bill the operator can never fully escape. And every piling, every electrical pedestal, every inch of dock is sitting in salt water 12 months a year, aging faster than almost any other piece of commercial real estate in existence. So what's the one variable that separates a marina worth tens of millions from one barely breaking even? It isn't the number of slips, it's scarcity of alternatives. A marina in a protected natural harbor inside a permitting zone that's been functionally closed for new construction for 20 years, with the nearest comparable facility an hour away by water, operates less like a business and more like a toll booth. A marina in a region where the coastline is still open, where a competitor could realistically get approved a few miles down the shore, has to compete on price like any other business, and margins collapse accordingly. A resort can build another hotel, a restaurant can lower its prices, a marina sitting on a fixed government-permitted stretch of coastline cannot manufacture more waterfront no matter how badly the market wants it. Scarcity isn't a side effect of this business. Scarcity is the business. Picture a 200-slip marina in a protected harbor where the permitting freeze has held for 20 years. At an average of $900 a month, dockage alone brings in a little over $2 million annually. Solid, but non-remarkable once payroll, insurance, and dredging reserves come out. Now add the anchor effect. Fuel sold to a captive fleet at a premium of even 50 cents a gallon, multiplied across hundreds of boats all season, adds several $100,000 in near pure margin. Winter storage and haul-out for 200 boats at a few $1,000s each adds several $100,000 more. Repairs, billed at a marked-up shop rate to customers with no other yard within reach, stack another layer on top. Suddenly, a marina that looked like a modest real estate play is generating profit margins that would make a software company jealous, built almost entirely on services sold after the loss-leading slip fee already had you locked to the dock. Each one of those add-on charges on its own looks as forgettable as a large pizza. Multiplied by 200 boats with nowhere else to go, it becomes one of the quietest monopolies in American real estate. You didn't rent a slip, you rented the absence of anywhere else to go.